today we're going to be talking about the second part of the mural episode. And yeah, it's super, super exciting. So we spent a day kind of looking at all of the details of the panels within the mural. And so, Jeannie, take it away.
Well, this is the far left side of the left panel. As I had mentioned in series 1, there's a forest with a path to the very left, and then right next to the path is a group of men talking. And this is the first group of men you see talking. You see they have a tent. You see the tent has TNT in it and some other boxes, and they're having the conversation. They're listening. One guy's listening. One guy's asking questions. It's just that wonderful, wonderful depiction of the conversation. Here we have the center panel of the conversation going on in the foreground of the left panel. You've got this beautiful group of figures in period dress just hanging out. They've got the packages they've just lifted off of the docks. They're leaning on them. Again, you have the mysterious TNT canisters, and they're just chatting away and talking and thinking. And you can tell it's a very engrossing conversation just by the way that they're drawn. And in the background, you have the workers are loading the docks, which they were probably just doing minutes before. They're on break or decided to take a little breather and have a conversation. And no doubt it's about the history of America. It's about the British. It's about their, remember the Boston Tea Party was all about, tea tariffs, and in those bags up front are probably loose tea. And they're just discussing, wait a minute, is this really, really to our benefit? Is this where we want to go? Do you think our country can be independent from England?
And also potentially, maybe they're talking, it's such a hopeful image, because these are all of the things that they're going to use to build this country.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it's the harbor. It's where things come in. It's where they're being unloaded. There's absolutely beautiful depiction of ships in the background. Ship after ship after ship. It's a busy harbor. This is not a dead zone. This is not, a down on its heels harbor. This is a vibrant harbor with a capital V. It's loaded with ships. It's loaded with activity. It's loaded with workers. And it's a center point for the conversation about America and its future.
Amazing.
This is just a beautiful background image of workers in the back. You can see the detail. Each of these little figures is a little over an inch high. But you can see what they're doing. You can see their movement. There's highlights on their arms, their legs. They're lifting boxes. They're rolling barrels. You can even determine that the house in the back is made out of wood, or the warehouse. Again, you're just absolutely it's mind-blowing how incredible the detail in this mural is. Somebody took so much care in the original painting and drawings done for it. It's unbelievable, the amount of figures in it. And it's important too, because like I said, there's a lot of figures, because it's showing this is a very vibrant harbor. This is no ordinary harbor. This is the harbor, and what's happening here is important.
The beginning,
yeah.
I think
here we have a detail of one of the ships they're unloading. The workers are rolling items taken from the ship off. You see the beautiful detail in the folds of the sails. There's a little tent there on the boat that was similar to the tent you saw in the left panel. Conceivably, they might have taken those tents from the boat and put them on the dock to sleep in when they were, off work, or to take a nap on break. You've got the detail of the workers. I mean, a historian in harbor history or commerce, shipping, would find this absolutely fascinating. And you see the skinny little lines of the masting of the ships. Try to wrap your mind around how hard that is to do in a wood block. Those are carved, and not carved as a line. The outside is carved, leaving the little line to be inked. So Zuber was a master printer in unfathomable detail that you see on these ships. It's absolutely incredible. It's kind of hard to even imagine how they did that.
For real. I'm going to kind of just zoom in.
It's
to
incredible.
The tiny figures
now those little
there.
figures are a half-inch high. So they've got the foreshortening going on. They turn them into blue because when things go in the background in a painting, you take in the light blue because light blue is the color the eye sees as things get further away in space. So the figures, which in the version we saw where the figures were 1.5 inches high, there was more detail in their clothing and their color and their face. These people are very far away, so the detail is cut down, but you've got that blue and then the black is a contrast. So still from a distance you can tell exactly what those people are doing, even though they are 1/2 inch high. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Here's a detail of some workers on the foreground lifting a plank and pulling a ship in. You've got a couple guys with the ropes on ships. They're talking. They're working. They're dock workers. They're working. And look at the beautiful use of color. You've got the vermilion there and the cobalt blue as highlights on the gray. I have mentioned how Cheesewright and his wallpaper artist chose the color for this mural. All through it you see beautiful use of grays and browns. More than I've ever seen in any printing of this Scenes in North America mural. And what masters they were, the beautiful grays that they used to shadow it, and then they would come in with the more almost fluorescent color highlights, just add to the magnificent in terms of just as an art object this mural is.
Gorgeous.
Not to mention it's just perfect figure work. You can absolutely tell looking at it what they're doing.
The movement, yes.
Yeah, it's just beautifully drawn. The original drawings must have been very detailed. Look at this. Look at the little tiny ships in the background. There's people rowing all over the place. There's different sized ships. There's a steamship, which if you remember, that was a huge invention of the day that they're very excited about, to bring steam in, and especially for the rivers, because they couldn't always, many times had to go against the current, so they couldn't rely on sails, and this added a little power to go upstream. But there you see the steamship, there you see the little people in the boats. Again, you can tell exactly what they're doing. They're sitting, a guy's rowing. You don't have any question what's happening in those ships, but if you think about it, that's less than 1/2 inch high. So in a very tiny little detail, there's some more in the very back, those blue figures. In this case, they moved them all to blue just to push them back in the detail. So it's such fantastic use of color for perspective. So the mural is not flat. It's definitely three-dimensional, and a lot of that is the illusion done with color. You see it in the village here. All of the houses have a three-dimensional look. They're not flat, there's shadows, but because they're in the background, they're not heavily detailed either. They needed to show form and shape, but at the same time be pushed to the background so the figures would be brought to the foreground. So again, fantastic use of grays, foreshadowing, and color.
And you could see how it's, obviously you could see the panel right here, the separation.
Yes. Each panel was about 18 inches wide that they printed, and they would have to print these things. You first of all get this, wrap your mind around this. This mural took 1 year to make, because they would have to print the 220 colors each separately and then let them dry, even a few days or a week before they applied the next color. So it was a long process. This was nothing quick to make a mural of this size.
Unbelievable.
Here we keep moving across the left panel. We have more of the village, of a beautiful boat with the sails in the foreground. And there's that a windmill on the right there. I have went specifically to the JFK Library files, and I asked them personally, what is that building? Because I was just curious. There's this windmill, and so far I have looked and looked and looked. I've not been able to determine what that building is. It's probably gone now. The location in the mural tends to be an assimilation of different locations. It's not one location. It's not the Boston Harbor.
It's taking liberties.
Yeah, it's different harbors. So yeah, it's
Sure.
artistic license. So one day I hope to learn about the name of that building because it's very interesting with the windmill there.
What's up with all the smoke in the background?
I think those are trees.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That makes more sense.
And you can't tell because we're so close up on it. But if you pulled back, they would look more like trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because of the shadows.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes. Oh, yeah. I see that right
Yeah.
here, actually. Yeah.
And when I was mentioning how the panels are 18 inches wide, these wood blocks that they would use to print this were heavy because they had to be as high as the mural was and as wide. So it wasn't just something a man could pick up with his hand and stamp on.
It was a team.
They were so heavy they had to be lifted with pulleys. The team had to shift it over, drop it in the paint, lift it up the paint, take it over, and drop it on the panel, obviously using extreme care, because one little shaky hand could smear the figure.
Wow.
So then lift it off and put back. Obviously had to be done by more than one person, and just absolutely incredible craftsmanship. This is moving on to the right. This goes into the Indian panel. These Indians have headdresses on that are from a very specific tribe that it says in the JFK papers it's Winnebago Indians. I did look them up and I did not see those headdresses anywhere. So again...
so we think it's a Winnebago,
yeah,
but we're not sure.
I'm not sure because I've found a couple other inaccuracies in those JFK papers. The mural, and Zuber, had the whole building bombed where they lost half the block. So it's a bit of a mystery. It's still to discover. But remember, at that time there were these explorers from France and England, but they would come to America, and there was those pre-photography days. There were no cameras. They didn't even thought the camera would be invented. They had no idea there was going to be such a thing as a camera.
Sure.
They would take an illustrator with them on these treks, and they would, go out and meet the Indians and do trade and see the world. So somebody did drawings on some of those treks, brought them back to Alais, France, and an artist in Alais, France drew the initial drawings for the mural who had never been to America. So he was just kind of taking different drawings and saying, oh, this would be interesting. And so it's not, 100% sure that it is even representative of a tribe. It could be
a conglomeration again.
Yes.
Just of like the experience.
Yes.
Some sort of, it looks like some sort of, sort of like a welcoming ceremony.
Yeah, it was common, just from the research that I've done I've researched those illustrators of the early days. I've bought books on them. And, that usually for when the explorers would come for trade, they would perform for them. So there's obviously some kind of performance going on. Again, you've got that beautiful vermilion and blue just as an accent color, which works so well and so beautifully and has held up through the years. It's not faded.
That's the amazing part.
1834. Yeah, it's
amazing.
Not faded. And it's just beautiful, beautiful color. Here you have the right panel of the Indian panel, and you have a group of African Americans and European ancestry watching the performance and talking with each other. You have again one of the dancers there in a pose like he's just ready to keep dancing, and he's got one of those headdresses on, which so far I have not learned which tribe they are from. And above them, if you pull back, not seen in the picture, is the Virginia Natural Bridge. So again, this probably was not set in Virginia. It was again that combination of different parts of America, because it's scenes of North America. It's not saying depiction of North America.
Right.
It's scenes.
And artists always take artistic liberties, as they should, to sort of convey an overall idea.
And I'm mentioning, there's a part of the damage done. Again, that tragic, failed restoration.
We can skip this part here. We talked about that in part one.
Yeah.
But just as a reminder, that there was a painter that came in to so-called restore the woodblock panels and essentially just started acrylic acrylicing
Some
over
kind
the woodblock prints, which is ridiculous. And then anyway, if you want to hear all about that, that's in part 1.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say to look at in this, like, look at those beautiful mast and lines and of the ships, and again, imagine that that is a woodblock print. Someone had to carve that little tiny line,
And
just
not
amazing.
just a painting.
Yeah. There is the Virginia Natural Bridge that is above the Indians we saw earlier. You have the beautiful pines, the natural bridge, the beautiful depiction of trees, and a very watercolor-like colors. Just be the color, the paint used was tempera paint. Tempera paint has been used for centuries as a paint, and I guess there was some hesitation or criticism that it might not be light sensitive. Well, that has not happened. The color has stayed beautifully intact, and this is Southern California light pouring in on this mural day and night. It's not faded. The faded look is intentional.
Amazing.
To push certain images into the background, like it's doing with the bridge and the rock.
Again, for perspective.
Yeah, so it's not
That's
flat,
so beautiful.
and that makes it even more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a close-up of the village and the top of the mast of the ships, the little figures in the back again working. There's a little flag, American flag. I was asking earlier, I wonder how many stars were on the flag at that point.
1834, whatever that was.
Yeah, I have to look that up. There's the White House, as they drew it in 1834. That's a very interesting first, because of the first photograph I ever saw of the White House was from 1850. So
amazing.
That's a historical artifact right there.
All right, now we're moving on to the other side of the mural.
Right.
So the way that it is, if you haven't seen it in person, which you should if you can, is that there is the left side and then there's the right side, and it's separated by a gorgeous window that lets in just an incredible amount of light to highlight different parts of the mural on both sides. But so now we're on the left side, now we're on the right side of the mural, which kind of wraps around the staircase and is absolutely incredible.
Yes, and we'll show a photo of that in a minute. This is a carriage. This is Niagara Falls, and these are tourists being taken to see Niagara Falls. In an old-fashioned horse-drawn carriage.
And it is
loaded.
full
It's
people.
Full. There's a lot of people there, and they're in shadow, so they all have the same skin color, which is brown in this picture, and they're just excited to go see the Niagara Falls, which is one of the prettiest panels in the mural, which we will show you. There is the full depiction of the Niagara Falls panel. Now, I think I have mentioned before the color, well, not in the podcast, actually, the color Zuber chose for this is very, very different than the printing in the White House. The White House printing of this Niagara Falls has blues, bright blues in the sky, bright blues in the water, bright greens. Cheesewright and his artists took a whole different tact. They use grays, they use taupes, they used shades of brown, all different shades of brown. It looks so much better, it looks so much more real. Like now you're really kind of imagining what Niagara Falls looked like in 1834 when they came. The illusion is very good.
And the sky is sort of fiery, a little bit fiery orange.
Yeah, the sky is kind of that golden, fiery, and as you can see on the far right, there's a guy pointing and just saying, wow, wow, and the people are agreeing with him that this is amazing. Niagara Falls is amazing natural phenomena, and it's talking about in America how amazing the nature is here, and it absolutely is. I mean,
and I love how he chose the perspective of the falls being gigantic and the people being tiny. You can almost hear the sound.
You can, yeah. The people are very tiny. Again, you have half-inch figures there on the left behind the waterfall. If you zoom in there, I guess there was an ability because of a natural fissure in the rock. Go up and Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
look at
a
that. You
natural
gotta be
fissure in the rock
kidding
made a
me.
ledge that they used for tourists to go in and go actually behind the waterfall, which must have been amazing. And there they are, walking behind the waterfall, and the waterfall's in front of them. There's a tiny bit of blue in there, but mostly it's gray. And you see the beautiful use of the shading on the water that gives the illusion of how fast that water is pouring off the hill.
Right.
At the top, it's pouring so fast the water itself is generating steam. So that is an amazing waterfall. That is not quiet. That's loud. That's powerful. That's nature at its most powerful, and it's depicted in the mural. And
this one is between the last one and this one, but I really wanted to go to the Niagara Falls first. But I love this one because of the staircase detail.
Yeah, here's the staircase is an original staircase, a Cheesewright design staircase, and it had to intersect with the mural. So they obviously, though, were very, very careful about where that happened. And it's right above a steamboat. Remember, the whole upstairs alcove, the whole of the building was designed from blueprint stage to hold this mural. As I said, the mural took a year to print. This took planning. They had to choose the color for the mural. They had to arrange the printing. They had to wait the year before it was done. And they had to decide where everything, where the window, where the staircase, where the mural was going to cut off, where it was going to be. It was all designed. It was all, Cheesewright obviously knew this mural very well. I mean, I imagine just from being around that building for 5 years, the guy was, had a very good eye, very good artist. So, he remembered it, though, so well.
Well, I could see he might have had, is it possible that he had like sort of a blueprint of it, an idea that he was maybe with like a magnifying glass, just like checking out all the different scenes?
It could have been. He knew the mural very well. Somewhere he had seen one. Somewhere it had, impressed him so much that for his building, he wanted it right there as a centerpiece. And at the time, he was fortunate enough to have the finances because he was so successful. He was working on, and at the money I'm sure he got to do this was Greystone Mansion was a 40,000 square foot mansion of the Doheny's, who were the richest people in LA at the time, and other projects. So he had the money. But he really put a lot of love and care into the planning. Yeah,
and we'll get into the Cheesewright. We'll start getting into the E.J. Cheesewright world.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to say about that.
Yes, and
again, look at these little tiny figures on the boat. Just amazing. Look at that. I mean, you see painting like that in the FOBs. Only that's the center painting where they would abbreviate figures, just for a kind of almost cartoony effect. But this is being done as a method of foreshortening to push things into the background, to have visuals that depict crowds, but at a distance.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, here we have this very center panel, which I discussed in the last podcast. This is, you have a group of African Americans in period dress. They're in their beautiful finery, and they got their hats and their dresses, and they're talking, having a conversation. Well, you've got a guy on the horse, and he's looking at them saying, "What the hell?"
Yeah, he's got his hand on his hip, like, how dare they?
He's a snob. He's looking at them like, "Are you kidding me? What the hell is going on?" You've got the lady there with the umbrella looking around too, saying, "Oh my goodness." They could care less. They are ignoring him. He's not important. His racism is something that is destined in American history to be eclipsed by a country that needed to be inclusive. And at this point, that was not happening. When this was made, 1834, there was still, slavery was very much in effect in all its horrors. And it really wasn't until 1850 it was ended, and then there was a whole civil war. Just years and years of grief and tragedy and trouble and struggles getting over the race issue, which we're still struggling with today. But that's again why this mural is so visionary.
Say 1863 was Emancipation Proclamation.
Okay, okay. So it was a long way away, but
a whole generation essentially.
Yeah, the muralist was saying, no, this is what's going to happen in America, and he was right.
That's the future. That's the future.
This is New York, which is so cool from 1834. You can see the little sailboats docked, the little steeples. If you zoom in, again, there's that fantastic detail saying this was a crowded place. Look at all the buildings in New York. New York always, had a lot going on, and it had a lot going on then. And oh wow, look at that detail. And of course, just like New York, shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
Building after building.
That's so amazing.
The building just got higher, but there it is. An amazing depiction, pre-photography of New York. I mean, lovers of New York history alone would love that panel.
Really? This one or this one? Oh, it's both. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a group of people to the right of the center panel riding on horses in their finery and a horse-drawn carriage. Just
people living their lives, talking. Every depiction of people, they're not so much. They're watching, they're observing things around them, but they're also discussing what they're seeing. They're not just sort of passively taking it in.
Right. This is a just absolutely beautiful landscape panel that comes next as you move right. The huge rocks, the trees. I mean, I think, for a long time, America, one thing that's blown people away about its nature is how big it gets. The height of the mountains, the height of the rocks, the height of the trees. And again, beautiful illustrative work of rocks and foliage and trees.
And of course the shadows.
Yes, using again the browns and grays that they did so well and are so naturalistic, really. This is the West Point / Weehawken panel. There's just some, again, it could have been both because it was an artistic interpretation. If this is West Point or this is Weehawken, the JFK papers say it's Weehawken. They say it's alluding to a battle that the Americans won over the British, which the French, of course, were very glad to hear because the British were their mortal enemies at the time, and they were very much on our side. So, but the troops are doing maneuvers here, and there's people watching them. These are the people in the very background watching them in front of, must have been the Hudson River. Yeah, again, look at the beautiful drawing of the, half-inch figures in the background. And there is, in the foreground, you've got the people in their finery watching the maneuvers going on. They've got
there's like a whole pointing sort of motif going on throughout. Like, check it out, what's going on.
It's saying it's beautiful drawing and cartooning, you might say it, or these people, you have to understand this is all technique. It's not. As an artist, you would just appreciate, the artist was saying, I want to make these people look like they're looking at something. So they don't just turn their head, they got their arm up, they're pointing. Beautiful technique. There's an early American flag.
With very few stars.
Very few stars.
And I think we've come sort of to the end of the panels that we picked, the details of the panels that we picked. And here, let's get this is a good depiction of the space.
Yeah, there's the window. This is the top of the stairwell. On the left, you have the left panel. Then you see the Indian panel, then the Niagara Falls. Look at those colors. Look at the color just from a distance. It's so beautiful.
Just breathtaking.
Again,
breathtaking.
This is a beautiful shot of the alcove that Cheesewright designed with the mural. And the success of his coloration, it wasn't, like I said, I've said many times how it's not as bright as the other paintings. It's more classical. It's that much more lovely. That's an original chandelier That's an original staircase. The chandelier actually was not in the pictures that I found at the History Museum of the Mural building when it was first built. And my guess is, since it's a wrought iron chandelier, beautiful wrought iron chandelier, that it was made there because one of the shops that was in the back was a wrought iron shop. And I think he probably made his shop probably made that chandelier to show what beautiful chandeliers they could make. And wow, is that a pretty one.
So those are the incredible details of this just, again, magnificent piece of artistry and history that's in Pasadena, California, that no one really appreciates at all.
And no one knew was there.
I mean, it's just insane to me.
It's crazy.
So what we're hoping to sort of start a Patreon type of situation where we will offer, various sizes of these little details from it for you to enjoy and support the podcast, support the efforts in hopefully restoring it.
Yes.
I mean, it's falling apart in a way. It's got that white, awful layer that painter decided to do.
And it needs to be restored. It needs to be protected. I just yesterday I saw a UPS guy carrying a huge box up the stairs. He's looking down. He's not looking where he's going. He could have ran in at any point that it could get even worse damage because it's not protected. So it needs to be restored. It needs to be protected. It needs to be appreciated. It needs to be visited by art lovers of the world and school groups who just appreciate how visionary piece of historical artwork it is and how important.
That's it. I think we're good. We're going to wrap the mural, which is incredible. I'd say if you're around the Pasadena area, do come and visit, and Jeannie will show you around. And that's it for us for today. Thanks for listening.